answers. Okay.
Okay.
Are they going to question me too?
Well, a little shy to question.
Yeah,
They may want to, let's see, they may want to chime in here in a second. Okay.
If you have any questions, just...
Please do chime in. Okay, the first question that we had sent was, tell us about how you met and married Bob Webb.
Well, I told you
In
that.
chapel, and so we do have that on tape.
Yeah.
And so the next was about the time you arrived in Bell Buckle, and also how come you came to Bell Buckle. And of course, this will be an up-close video, so you might want to retell a little bit
Okay.
about that.
Well, should I tell about how I found out about Bob Webb?
Oh, sure. That would be great.
My brother in Nashville had a friend, Bill Doak, who came to Webb School, and he told Bergen, my brother, that he had a math teacher he thought I'd like. And so I was in UT that summer, and I met this young man who was working on his master's degree, and I asked him what he did, and he said, I teach school. And I said, where do you teach? And he said, Bell Buckle. And I said, what do you teach? And he said, math. And I said, is Bill Doak in your class? And he said, yes, he is. So I wrote my brother and said, tell Bill I've met his math teacher. And Bill said, I bet they get married. And my brother said, she'll never marry. And Bill said, I bet you $5 they get married. And so when we got married, Bill said, Bergen, you owe me $5. And Bergen said, I'm not going to pay you, Bill, because if they hadn't gotten married, you'd say there's still a chance. And you wouldn't pay me. But anyway, we did. And that was nice. We came to Bell Buckle. He brought me to Bell Buckle one night. The first time we came to Bell Buckle, it was in the dark. And he showed me the big room where he taught. And that he taught by a pot-bellied stove, and he said you'd freeze in front and burn up and back. And that's the way of a pot-bellied stove. But in 2 years they had changed had gotten a new school. But when we first a new building. When we first came to Bell Buckle, it was election day. This was before we were moving in, and Bob went down to vote. And the man it was at the post office, and he said, where's your wife? And he said, well, she's not a resident yet. And he said, doesn't matter, she's going to be, bring her on down. But I didn't vote. But I felt very welcome from the beginning. And it was great.
Good deal. Okay, and it's also, how long were you involved in Bell Buckle? And I think I heard you say in chapel.
6 years.
Okay, 6 years. Okay.
And both our children were born in Bell Buckle. And, well, not in Bell Buckle, but Julia was born the summer, and we came back to school. And when Susie was born, I had her in the baby buggy, and she was sound asleep. She was 3 weeks old. And George Hester, I meant to tell this in the thing today, and I forgot it. But anyway, George Hester was a freshman. He now is a doctor in Murfreesboro. But he came by and he peered into the buggy, and she was asleep, and he said, how old are they before they open their eyes? So
I said that he was showing early signs of scientific curiosity.
But anyway, and we had a sand pile, and there were little 8th grade boys at that time, and they loved that sand pile as much as Julia did. It was for Julia, the sand pile. And every night after supper, they'd come, some of them, and play in the sand pile. So that was fun. And one time, when we were getting ready to leave, Julia was the baby at that time. She was about a year and a half. And she disappeared, and all the boys had left, and we lived in this dorm with, I'm not sure how many boys there were, but there were a lot, 2 stories. And I called her, and she didn't answer. And so I called her again, and she didn't answer, and I said, how does the cow go, Julia? And from a far distant corner, she said, moo. So I found her.
That's a good way to find her.
In your talk, you had started to tell about the campus at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Over here in
Oh, yeah.
Lansing.
Where we lived, I'm not sure what is in its place now, but it's up there near the dining room.
Okay.
And it was closer to the road. It was Jackson Hall, and then there was a Rand Hall up where the dining room is located, and that's where we ate our meals. And behind behind our hall, Jackson Hall, was an infirmary. That's not there anymore, is it?
I'm not sure. We do have an older infirmary.
Do you?
So,
It could
yes.
be. And then across the street was the Clary House. This was a house that had been a residence, and that's where the boy who decided not to take a bath lived. And the boys got hold of him, and that was that. And then there was this, we noticed today that there was a pond. There's still a little bitty
Right over
pond.
there.
That was a big pond, and one time it got very cold in the winter, and it froze.
Yes.
And so I said they ice skated. Nobody had ice skates, but they skidded, and they had a real good time.
I think that it iced over last winter.
Did
And
it?
it did.
Oh,
And
good.
we've got pictures of the kids.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, and I guess I had asked you in here, did you have a role in teaching or parenting the boys? And,
Well,
and I heard you talk about it in chapel, and that was interesting.
we,
so.
they felt free to come, and occasionally we'd have them in for something to eat. When we were there, of course, we didn't have a kitchen, and I had if we entertained anybody, I had a rack that I'd gotten out of the junkyard from an old refrigerator across the bathtub. And I had a dishpan, and anytime we'd entertain, I would wash dishes in my dishpan on the rack over the bathtub. And one night, I washed my ring away, my diamond ring, and we never found it. I flushed it down the toilet, and that was that. So happily, it was. Bob had gotten insurance, and we could replace it, but that was pretty bad. So there's a diamond somewhere not far from here. You're a good one to go find.
Yeah. Talk about where the boys lived and the houses around Bell Buckle.
Okay. The boys lived, of course, in Jackson Hall and Rand Hall, and then across the street at the Clary House. And then going down the street, there was Mrs. Hinkle, who kept boards. And do you know the Hinkle House? Is it still by name?
I don't know which one, but
Yeah,
yes.
and of course, let's see, then on down the Baptist church, and we turned onto the street where the Sonny House was, and
It's Methodist.
yeah, then there's a Methodist church when you turn there, and of course the Sonny House, there were lots of boys. And
Who lived there with them? What?
a teacher.
Teachers.
Yeah, oh yeah, they were always chaperoned, or
Well, we know
whatever.
you knew they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Not.
This was, I don't know how many boys lived, and I don't know how many students there were at the time, but probably under 200. And anyway, they were all over town.
But mostly they came here and they boarded.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
they mostly boarded. And there were not girls here when we were here.
Okay. Not even towns?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't remember any girls. Bob, this happened before we were married, but he always told about the time that he had hoped they would have a dance, and this was their first dance, and he had sort of engineered it. And he said, I got to thinking, I really need to give them a few lessons on etiquette so they'll know how to treat these girls. I don't know why he thought they would not, but anyway, they were importing them from Shelbyville and Nashville and Murfreesboro and so around. And so he got up in chapel one day and he said, now, next Saturday night, we're going to have 80-odd girls come to town. And well, with that, they just broke up. Couldn't get their attention anymore.
Thinking of all those odd girls.